Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of WAKO Kickboxing Talks. Today, I am very honored to announce our very special guest, President of WAKO himself, Mr. Roy Baker. So, hello, Mr. Roy. It's an honor to have you here today.
The honor's all mine. It's great to be here and you're doing a great job. Well done.
Thank you so much. Okay, so for starters, I want to talk about the importance of the upcoming World Championships. As we know, we have, for example, this August in Budapest World Championship for Youth. So, can you tell us more about the importance of those?
Sure. Well, it's the Junior and Cadet World Kickboxing Championships being held in Budapest, Hungary. So the reality is it's our future. The young athletes, male and female, which we see at that event, they're testing themselves at a very young age and they really are the future of the sport. The vast majority of our future athletes come from this hubble of talent. So the Junior and Cadet World Championships really is a good testament to how kickboxing is doing globally. When you look at the participation of the countries and the volume of athletes and the skill level of the athletes, I think the biggest shift in our sport over the last 10 to 15 years is the level of the younger athletes. It's getting higher and higher. And the capabilities, it's extraordinary when you see these young athletes coming onto the tatami and the ring with the skill, not just the physical skill, but the mental skills of coping with such pressure. So for me, it's a snapshot of the future of the sport of kickboxing. And it's always amazed me. And it's one of my favorite events.
Of course it is, and it's an amazing thing because we are bringing together those talented young athletes who are passionate about what they want to do. And we want to hear your opinion on the strategic growth of kickboxing. What are the main pillars now?
Wow, that's a big question. Well, the pillars really is to look at the opportunities that we place before our athletes. So we were shortlisted for LA 28 and we didn't make it. We now must look for Brisbane 2032. We also must look at other opportunities, the European Games, the Asia Games, the Pan America Games, the Africa Games, the Oceania Games. They're the European Olympic Committee, the Asian Olympic Committee. So we must look at opening those opportunities for the athletes because the purpose and the reason WAKO exists is for the athletes to develop opportunities for those athletes for the future, which I never had as an athlete back in the 80s and 90s and just about the 2000s. So it's really about focusing on that, focusing on what will make a material difference to them, but it's also focusing on good governance, accountability, transparency, and standards. We have to develop the standards within WAKO to be equal, whether they're in Europe, Africa, Asia, Oceania. It's got to be equal. The product that we deliver to our athletes needs to be the same as much as possible. So it's about inclusion in the various games, including FISU and all other events. It's the development of the standards and the capabilities of the officials. It's the development of the standards of the events. And it's really to make sure that we have good governance, not just at the WAKO IF level, but at the NF level and at the continental level. So it's an all-encompassing strategy. But they to be honest, will be the standard pillars for all of the IFs that are recognised by the Olympic Commission. And we're very privileged to be part of that Olympic family, being a fully recognised sport.
Yes, of course. And as you mentioned, things were way different back in the 80s and the 90s. So we want to know about your personal journey and the hardships that you had to overcome to go up to the final ladder of being, the president of WAKO.
I wouldn't call them hardships. I'd call them my journey.
Ah, yeah.
Um, I'm a young man from Ballyfermot in Dublin. I grew up with a very strong family centred position with my mom and dad and my five brothers and sisters. Got into the sport of kickboxing very early. I had my first medal in WAKO, which are behind me in 1988. You weren't born. I had my last medal in WAKO in 2002. So I had a long journey. I started fighting in WAKO around 1982. So I had nearly as an athlete, I had nearly 20 years on the competitive field. I then moved into coaching, coached a number of world and European, multiple world and European champions. I then moved into politics with your dad on the WAKO board back in, I can't even remember when. I became a board member. I brought the Irish Open together because I wanted an event that the Irish athletes could go to without having to travel. That was the whole purpose behind it and the charity that we do. So, and then through to various being in the right place at the right time, or the wrong place at the right time. I became president, but I became president, unfortunately, at the loss of your dad who was one of my best friends in the world. I never really had the aspirations to be president. I always like to work. Those that know me know I like to work. And being president sometimes can be quite difficult because you're always at the front. And sometimes you have to make very difficult decisions, and sometimes decisions that you don't personally agree with, but it's the trajectory of the sport, and it's the value and benefit of the sport that you have to put first. And it's a tough job sometimes, but it's a very rewarding job. And I'm privileged to be elected president for a second time. So it's a long journey. Like, I'm 59 years of age. I'm in the sport since I'm about 9 years of age. I still coach. I still run a club. Half an hour after this, I'll be down coaching my students. I coach 16 hours a week. And I still love the sport. I'm still connected to the sport personally at every level. All of my friends are involved in sport, kickboxing. So my community is kickboxing. And you'll find that similar to most of the people whose lives have been wrapped around the sport of kickboxing. And as well, I've got my professional job as a director of a FTSE 20 company, and that's got its own pressures, and trying to balance those pressures in life. So that's my journey. I've been lucky. I have been lucky. I'm very privileged to be where I am now and leading a federation like WAKO, and the people that I have, and particularly the board I have, great people. So it's my journey, and my journey's not over yet. So I've still a lot to do.
Yeah, that's very impressive. That's a very impressive story. And, as you mentioned, leading up to there, that definitely wasn't a short and easy process. So you must have collected a lot of knowledge throughout the years and everything. So, of course, you're doing your job as a president. So amazing. So we want to know, why do you do it the way you do it?
That's
That.
a really good. Why do I do it? I would summarize it really. My dad, Dave Baker, his obituary is there on the wall. My dad, Dave Baker, was probably the best human being I've ever met in my life, and I'm less than 50% of him. So he tried to do things transparently. He was democratic. They called him the quiet man. I don't think I got that from him. I'm not a quiet man. Really, the way I do things is I try and emulate the way my dad behaved, and the way I saw my father. I was very lucky to have a father like that. And I try and bring people along. I've got a strong academic background, and I believe that the role of a leader is to empower others, not to empower yourself, to empower others. And I have great people around me like Mickey, Espen, Salim, Isfan, all of my board. They do a huge amount of the work. I'm just the captain of the ship, and I steer the ship. And I need to make sure I steer the ship in the right direction on behalf of our members, not on behalf of my own interests or anybody else's interests. So the reason I really do it the way I do it is in homage of my dad, and it's also the way I would like to be treated and the way I would like to see the federation progress. It's not easy to run a world federation. You've got personal interests, you've got demographics, you've got social differences, you've got war, you've got conflict. Trying to manage all of these paradigms that come into the program, into WAKO, it can be complex sometimes. And why do I do it the way I do it? Mostly because of my dad, and secondly because of my experiences within the corporate world. I know how to run a large company, and WAKO really, in the end, is a large company that has to finance itself, has to develop itself, and has to be able to promote itself. So that's a great question. Actually, I've never asked that question before.
And for a moment there, you mentioned your board as somewhat of a driving force, the people who are supporting you, and not only you, supporting each other. So, can you tell us more about the board of directors? How do you work together? Do you support each other throughout decision making? How do you get along?
Yeah, we get along fine, but it's okay to have disagreements, and actually, it's healthy to have disagreements, as long as you don't disrespect each other or try and undermine the majority. So the board get on a lot great. I mean, they are fantastic, great people, and I don't instruct them; they come to me with ideas. So it's about me empowering them and allowing and giving them the tools to do what they need, and also the committees. The WAKO committees are really the engine of WAKO. The referee committee, the athletes commission, all of these different commissions we have are actually working, and people don't see the work these volunteers do in the background that create that trajectory and create that kind of energy that comes into WAKO. So my board is it really is it's a great board, and we don't it's great because they challenge me and I challenge them, and we challenge each other, but we also respect each other, and we respect the differences of opinions. It's not the president's way. It's not the first vice president's way. It's not the vice president's way. It's not the treasurer's way. We debate, we discuss, we come to a collective position. And it's not always unanimous. There can be dissent. So people can say, well, I really don't, I'm voting against that. And nobody takes it. A healthy environment is, I don't take umbrage with that. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And all the board does is it goes with the majority position. And there has been decisions on that board that haven't gone the way that I felt they should go. That's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So that has to we must maintain that healthy relationship and that dynamic of it's okay to disagree. As long as you don't disrespect each other, that's actually healthy. That shows democracy and not a dictator. So for me, that's the way it should work.
Yeah, exactly. And with that being said, of course, good governance, good team dynamics, healthy team dynamics, transparency are very important. So I believe those are some of our biggest, driving motivators to.
Yeah, you've got to have your personal ethics. Yeah. Then you've got to have your board ethics, then the WAKO ethics, and they all have to align to each other. And you got to really, each person on the board has to understand the purpose of why they exist on the board. If you understand your purpose and why you sit there and what you have to do, then you're empowered. My responsibility is X, and I have to go from A through to Z. And you bring in that trajectory. And my job as the leader is, one, to make sure you're doing that you're traveling in the right direction. And two, that you've got the tools, the power, and the wherewithal to do it, and the skill sets. Because it is hard at the level WAKO is now. It's not where we were 10 years ago or 15 years ago. There's far more responsibility on WAKO as an IOC recognized federation. And that responsibility has also come onto our national federations who have received recognition. When you get recognition in your National Olympic Committee or National Ministry of Sport, there are a number of things that you have to do to get in. And then there are a number of things that you have to do to maintain. So it's more complicated for everybody. And I don't think everybody really understands that extra responsibilities, extra pressure on the national federations, on WAKO, and on the continental federations. But it's pressure that we wanted because this is where we wanted to be. And we're privileged to be within the Olympic family of sports. Privileged.
Yes, and then that kind of goes hand in hand with my next question, which is, what is next for WAKO? Where do you see WAKO in the future?
It's kind of similar to what I answered on the second question. It's around us developing and getting into those various international sport events because it contributes to our athletes. It gives our national federations more prevalence in their countries, and it's a good momentum for WAKO. So it's really to get into the continental championships, get into the FISU games. We're already in the World Games and the Combat Games, and ultimately get into the Summer Games. But the Summer Games is the end journey. It's all of the spots and priorities that you have to do to get to the Summer Games. And we have learned from not getting into the LA 28. Really, myself and Espen were the main people constructing that application alongside many members of the board supporting us. By not getting in there, we understand the reasons why, and we need to learn from those reasons and push forward for Brisbane. But it's not the only thing that we have to do. You don't put all of your eggs into one basket. There's many federations in the IOC that have never been shortlisted. And there's no guarantee that we will be shortlisted for Brisbane. It really depends on the level of WAKO within the IOC. It depends on the level of the national governing body in the country where it's placed. It depends on the activity within that region and the activity global and the growth of WAKO, and particularly the brand of WAKO, our media brand. How exposed are we to the world beyond the kickboxing people? Because we all live kickboxing. It's who knows about kickboxing beyond that. So they're the things. They're very big things. And we had a strategy day about 8 weeks ago in London, where myself and the board spent 2 days, 2 full days, just going through strategy. We have the outputs of that now. We're going to have another face-to-face at the World Championships and probably another face-to-face before Christmas. And then we will put out the new WAKO strategy, which will, of course, be internal because we can't have our strategy externalized because then our competition understands what we're doing and everybody's trying to get the same piece of cake, which is the Summer Games. So we need to make that activate that and create momentum.
Yeah. And let's go back to kind of the logistics of it. Gender equality is a big question now, generally in the world and especially in WAKO. Where do we stand with that?
I'm proud to say that gender equality in WAKO has been there since the 70s. So we've had female athletes in kickboxing since the 70s. 37% of my board is female. Some of the most competent individuals I have on my board, Michaela, Francesca, Kate, they're all really competent individuals. So for me, gender equality has always been embodied in what we do. Our female referees are equal to our male referees. Our female athletes have now, one of the big surprises for me was at the World Games in Birmingham was the female athletes in K1. They were better than the men. So in many sports, there's a difference of level of competition. Some of it's because of physicalities. But now I see the development of the physical presence of the female athletes in combat sports really equal to the men. And for me, the father of an extraordinary daughter who came third in the world in kickboxing, gender equality is very close to my heart. I wouldn't accept anybody behaving or doing anything towards my daughter that is gender biased. She's an extraordinary human being, as is my son, and they're living their own lives. And gender equality, it's in our DNA. We don't have to force that in WAKO. It's there, and I believe it has always been there because I'm in this sport, several decades, and I've never seen a gender bias in WAKO. I've never experienced. That's the wrong word. I've never experienced it in WAKO in my long history as a fighter, as a coach, as a promoter, as a president, as a vice president. I've never seen it.
Yeah, yeah. Great answer, because I truly do believe that sort of runs in the veins of WAKO. And with that also, we want to know about the general safety and well-being of, for example, participants at World Championships. Do we have special procedures that ensure that all of our competitors are at all times being safe and, taken care of?
Yeah, well, the first thing we have is the equipment. So step one really is the equipment, making sure the equipment is up to the appropriate standard. And we do that through our sponsors, our platinum sponsors, which are Century and Top 10. We do that through certification of those equipment. So our technical committee that is led by Romeo Deza, they review the equipment to make sure it's of the right standard and the material is there and the safety of the fighter is paramount. All the equipment where required is also CE approved. So that's the first step. So think about the safeties, what they're protected in. The second step we have is the playing field itself, the tatami and the ring. We have set standards in those tatamis and rings, so they must be met wherever you compete. So that's step two. Step three will be the referees, the qualification of the referees, the standard of the referees, the A, B, and C class referees that we have in WAKO. They are qualified and made centered on the rules and the safety of the fighter. The fourth mechanism we have will be the medics and the doctors and the ambulances at the arenas. You have to have 3 ambulances, you have to have doctors, you have to have medics. All of that's wrapped around the athletes. And then the fifth and final one really is the medical commission itself under Maximilio Bianco. And the way we've got the medical fight record, we've got the medical certificate, you've got the medical scanning at your home country where you have to be certified. And then you have the medical test when you come to WAKO, which is really just a final certification, making sure that you're not unwell on the day. Most of the stuff happens before that with the formal medical check at the doctor. So all of those components lead to a safer environment. But remember, we are in a contact sport. And part of the realization of coming into a contact sport is you may get hurt, but that is the exception and not the norm. And the job of WAKO is to reduce that exception and make sure that the safety of the athlete comes first. We've got the whole concussion protocol. Now, once you have concussed, there's a certain protocol that's put in place. Most combat sports have that. And, big thing about WAKO is we do have the A count for the athletes.
Yeah, and we want to get to know you more on a personal level here. So it's, as you mentioned before, not an easy job to be president, and we are sure that you're very busy. So how do you take time for yourself to relax and unwind? What do you do to recharge?
Really recharging for me is coaching. When I'm in with my kids, I coach on a Monday night for 3 hours. I coach on a Wednesday night for 3 hours. I coach on a Thursday night for 3 hours. I coach on a Saturday for 3 hours. And when I'm here, I coach on Sunday 2 to 3 hours. So I do that. That's one of mine. Another one you'll be surprised that go like your mom. It's gardening. I like to garden. And as well, this will be strange to people, but also I like being educated. So I'm still in college. I'm just finishing up my PhD. I like educating. I like occupying my mind. I'm not the type of person that sits and twiddles. I have always got a purpose. I like to be active. I like to be engaged, and I like to be growing. I like to grow physically, and I like to grow mentally. I don't know why. I've no idea why, but I enjoy books. I enjoy learning. I enjoy physical activity. I love running. I love coaching. They're all the things that they fit well. And a healthy life has to have its different components. You cannot be fully consumed by any one thing. I think that's destructive in a human being. I've got a number of channels to channel my energy, and that's very important for me. I realize I need to channel Roy Baker's energy. You know me, I have a lot of energy. And if I didn't challenge that energy, I'd honestly believe I'd be in trouble. I challenged that energy inward and I would be destructive to myself. So I'm aware that I need to channel my energy outward and that I need to I get a huge purpose in seeing things being built and things progressing. If I'm not the right person to progress something, I'm really happy to step back. If I don't believe I'm contributing positively to something, anything in life, not just kickboxing, then I'm really comfortable stepping back. And I've done that in my life in my different transitions from as a fighter. When I retired in 2002, I remember all of the athletes in my division thought I was playing mind games, that I was retiring and leaving. And I won my gold medal. And I told everybody it's my last fight. And everybody, yeah, right. Yeah. It was my last fight. Now it's the same in most of the components where I've in my life. I make a decision. I go, okay, I've done what I can do. I can't really do much more there. Move on. Find another channel for your energy. And that's the way I've lived my life. So it's a good question again. That's the way I relax. I relax by working. So working fits me.
Yeah.
I'm not a person that sits down and is idle. For me, positivity is around working, seeing, moving, building. So that's the way I relax. And I know that's a contradiction, but it's not, because it's the way I'm built. And we're all built differently. My daughter is completely different to my son in their own ways, completely different, day and night, but they're built in their own way. And you've got to find your way. And that's the whole meaning of life. Find your way, not your mom's way, not your dad's way, not your uncle's way, not somebody else is telling you way. Find what's your way. What's your perspective? Where's your energy coming from? And how do you, a big thing I've learned later on is, how do you get your energy? Because to expel energy, you have to get energy.
Yeah.
Simple symmetry. And you have to find what gives you energy. And when you find what gives you energy, channel that energy into something positive.
Yeah, exactly. An amazing answer. And everything you mentioned was just going back to my head. These are all traits of a good leader. So, yeah.
I always say this. I'm Roy Baker. Some people believe I'm a good leader, and some people believe I'm a bad leader. That's normal. I don't take it personal. That's life. Some people absolutely get behind me 100%. Some people are 50%, and some people are resistant to the way I want to take WAKO. And that's okay. Like I said to you, it's okay to disagree as long as you don't disrespect.
Yeah, of course. And for our last question, I want to know, what advice would you give to a young aspiring kickboxer who is just starting out and wants to, grow in the sport and sometimes perhaps maybe even more. So,
Well, I'll just take the example of my own athletes, and then that's really a genuine answer. So I've different levels of athletes in my school. I've got about 190, maybe 200 athletes in my club. And they're all at various levels. Some are beginners, literally children, 7 years of age, and some are actually current world and European champions. So it depends on your cycle. What we do within Bushido martial arts, which is my system, is that we develop them. And I've had athletes who qualified on the Irish team, and it's hard to get on the Irish team. The Irish team is top class. We're always in the top 5, top 10 in the world. I've had athletes qualify for the Irish team, and I haven't sent them away because they weren't ready. So it's really about find your journey, progress slowly. Don't try and jump too far, because a significantly negative experience for a younger athlete can affect them materially in their future of sport, and they may immediately leave the sport. So take small steps forward, and before you take that big jump, go to other events like the European Cups, the Pan American Cups, the Asia Cups, the World Cups, or the local events, the smaller international events, and then the World Cups, and then the Continental Cups, and then the World Championships. Take incremental steps to get there, and listen to your coach. Your coach has your interests at heart. There are amazing coaches out there that really I admire. Gianpaolo, Nikos Memos, Sean Vera, Dave Heffernan. There's coaches out there that have huge stable coming through, and listen to coach, and just enjoy your journey. Everybody, if you worry about the gold medal, if you're at the top level with my athletes, Amy, Tajas, Arnis, Dave, Kieran, Owen, I always say if you think about the gold medal, you've got the angel sitting on this side saying, I want to go, but you've also got the devil sitting there, what if I lose? What if I lose? What if I lose? And it holds you back. Just focus on your performance, focus on you. You cannot create the outcome of the athlete in front of you. There is a day when they will be better than you, and that's life. But don't focus on the destination. Focus on the journey. And if the journey is right, if you create all the components that improves your performance, improves your mental fortitude, improves your physical presence, your tactical, technical. If you develop all them along the way as you go, you'll get the goal. But please remember, the goal is only for that 0.01% of everybody. But enjoy the journey, because not everybody can get the goal. You know, I didn't get a medal in WAKO till 1980, many years of competing without a medal. So don't worry about the medal. Focus on the journey and enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, you shouldn't be doing it. It's got to be hard. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to push yourself. You're going to have to push the barriers. But enjoy the. So my advice is, enjoy the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, that's some amazing advice. So with this, we'll wrap up the interview. Thank you so much, Mr. Roy, for being here today. It was really an honor to talk with you. And thank you so much for the viewers too for watching. I believe you enjoyed this episode. So thank you. I hope we get to speak again soon.
But I hope we get to see everybody at the World Championships in August. And the whole purpose behind this podcast was to promote the World Championships. And thank you to Peter Gallenbos, István Hillary, and the Hungarian board for what they're doing in hosting the championships. I know it's going to be extraordinary. I know we're going to see our younger athletes there. And I know they're all going to be excited. And it's great. You know, one of the things we've got through is we've got through the pandemic. And one of the surprises for me is how quickly the sport returned to its normal rhythm after the pandemic. So I look forward to seeing everybody in Hungary and see you all soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next episode. Goodbye.